Okay, welcome to Third Platform Technologies, podcast number 3, so quite early on, but I'm very excited about this one. So I'm going to introduce you to our guest. We're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and explore the highs and lows. But I always like to have the guests introduce themselves. So Anna, if I could do that, that'd be great.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Anna, and I have been working in the AI industry for the last 8 years. My background is actually in mathematics. And yeah, I think that's a really good introduction.
8 years in mathematics, we'll get into that, but that scares me already, I can
Well,
tell.
8 years, 8 years in AI and mathematics, more than that.
It's a lot, it's a long time.
So a lot, yeah.
Good. Okay, so in terms of your journey then that led you towards AI, was that an accident? Had you always planned to go in that direction?
It was actually an accident. So after doing my PhD in mathematics, I was actually looking for postdocs, and I really wanted something that was aligned with my line of research, which was it was applied differential geometry, but it was about moving frames and discretization of moving frames.
Okay.
But I couldn't really find anything that aligned with it. So I thought, well, let's give industry a try. And I was looking for mathematical research jobs in industry. And I found this one in Edinburgh, and it was advertised as mathematical research, so
Okay.
very broad.
Okay.
But when I did the interview, what interested me the most was the industries that they were working for, because it was a consultancy, a tech consultancy.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they were having projects in like aerospace and like oil and gas. And I thought, oh, like this sounds really cool. So anyway, they called me for the job.
Yep.
Turns out that it was not a mathematical research job.
When you look behind the curtains, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like, the Scooby-Doo meme that they take like the hood of the bad guy. It was exactly like that.
Yeah.
It was a classic like data scientist role. So that's what I did for 2 years, and I actually fell in love with data science and AI there.
Goodness.
So
But it was by accident, really,
by
right?
accident, totally by accident. I didn't even know what AI was at the time.
So there's a perfect segue into, I think it's fair to say now, already in such a really short period of time, people are almost fed up with AI, right? AI is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And everyone's rushing into the space, but I'm not sure whether a lot of people have really taken a step back and paused and thought about what is AI, right? So for the purposes of the audience, in as simpler terms as possible, let's try and bring that to life for them.
I think the simplest way to describe AI and to explain what AI is by saying that is simulation of human intelligence. And I think that's a concept that everyone can understand.
Okay.
Right? So
yeah.
every single thing that is trying to mimic, human behavior or what humans think or how humans act, that is artificial intelligence.
Okay, perfect. And there's lots of acronyms that will be around that. We'll get into detail there. But why, if you were to summarize why AI has suddenly appeared in the roadmap over the last few years in a big way, what's the reason behind that? Is it something's changed in the computational power? Is it, what's happened that all of a sudden AI is everywhere?
That is actually one of the main things, like computational power, because there are a lot of algorithms that have been there since, well, I was going to say since forever. That is an exaggeration, right? But for a long, long time, but they have just been applied in the last couple of decades because we just didn't have the computational power to actually execute them.
Got it.
But now with like GPUs and TPUs that we can actually, execute this algorithm. So one important one is definitely computer power.
Okay.
Also, another one is data resources. So now we have access to so much data. And a lot of the AI algorithms do thrive in like large amounts of data. So that is another thing. And I think the third thing is like a snowballing effect, right?
Okay.
Because we're starting to apply AI in industries that maybe like traditionally they were not using any type of like machine learning or like technology in general.
Yep.
And now we're seeing that it's having like a lot of benefits and it's snowballing in the sense that, people are seeing the benefit and saying, okay, well, what about this other thing? Or what about this other industry? And they apply and they see that it works. And then they try in another industry and they see that, it's like a domino effect
Got it.
kind of thing.
So more data, more computational power, and then a realization slowly emerging of the power of
Exactly.
applying the technology, right?
Yep.
Goodness, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. So before we kind of finish the summary, then bring AI to life in terms of day to day. Like how are people interacting with AI generally that they may not even be aware that they're doing?
Sure. Well, we need to start with ChatGPT, right? Like, who doesn't?
That's a good place to
Who
start.
I think everyone can relate to that one. So yeah, like everyone uses ChatGPT like all the time. Like I hear people talking about that all the time. I was the other day in a swimming competition, and this dad was talking to their daughter like about ChatGPT. Told me this, told me that. I was like, okay, it's everywhere. But not just that, like for example, voice assistants, right? We do use a lot in our day-to-day Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, right? Like on my partner's flat, like everything is set up with like Google Assistant. Like we
Okay.
switch on and off everything with Google.
Yep.
Yeah, like his mom also like uses Alexa for everything as
Yeah.
well. What else? Yeah, well, chatbots, for example, right? That's a big thing at the moment, and we see chatbots everywhere. So you go to whichever website, and you might see this pop up of a
Yep.
chatbot for customer service. So do you need any help? And you actually talk to the chatbot, right? That is like AI all way. But also, for example, recommendation systems in Netflix, Spotify, or even like in social media, like when
Okay.
we get in our feed certain type of content
Yep.
recommended to us, that is an algorithm that is able to predict what are we going to be interested in. And not only that, like with social media, like things that go viral of like trending topics, that is also the result of an AI algorithm.
It's really interesting because I think probably speaking for a lot of the audience, certainly, they just interact with this new technology.
Mm,
And I'm not sure they've actually connected the dots between that
mm,
stuff having AI as an integral part of it and the
yeah,
value that it gives to the
yeah,
user versus just being a technology, right?
yeah.
So the question, it's a slight segue. You talked about the Google Assistant and Alexa as as an example. Do you think over time there'll be a reduction in perceived threat of the technology as it becomes normalized throughout
Mm.
society, or do you think that will always be there to an extent, depending on the personality of the individuals or the organizations that may or may not use it?
That's a really good question. And I think I like to keep a positive mental attitude.
You're an
To,
optimist, are
so
you?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
not only towards that, but everything in life. And what I would like to think is that the more AI evolves, the more measurements and the more regulations will be put in place,
Got it.
which will allow to, control this rapid growth and how people also use AI. So the more it grows, yes, the more threats they appear, but also the more ways and tools that we have to mitigate these threats, we will also translate into people trusting these tools
Yeah.
even more.
And we were having a coffee beforehand, right? And we talked about any tool, anything, not even
Yes.
technology, but anything at all can be used for positive purposes
Yeah.
in the world, or it can be used for nefarious properties. And I think that's always going to be
Yeah.
that's always
Exactly.
going to be there,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of the journey, then, are there kind of applications or innovations that you see or have seen on the horizon that are coming that particularly excite you or get
Mm.
you intrigued about the potential possibilities?
Sure. So the first one is AI agents, and this is something that has been started to be developed a lot in this last year, and I think it's going to become like a big thing
Okay.
in 2025. So for people that don't know what AI agents are, these are basically systems that have the capability to make autonomous decisions with no human interaction or low human interaction.
Okay.
And this is really, really powerful because first it can be applied to so many different industries. And in fact, I wouldn't be able to tell you one industry that is, that won't benefit from AI
So
agents.
it's universal potentially.
I think so. I
Okay.
do think so. But also the the return of investment that companies can have from implementing AI agents is massive, right? Because we are talking about, well, not only like automating repetitive and manual and monotonous tasks, but we are talking about integrating a lot of different things like APIs, databases, like all their websites, all their application, all their AI agents as well, right? There's this thing called multi-agent systems in where you can interconnect different,
Ooh.
different AI agents. They can all make like, their own autonomous decisions.
And they're communicating between themselves.
Exactly. So for example, imagine that you have this chat box interface, right? And you're talking to this multi-agent system.
Hmm.
You enter a query, and depending on the type of query, then the system will be able to determine which agent or workflow of agents is the best.
Oh, wow.
The best solution for your problem to actually execute that
And
task.
this is amazing because this accelerates a more, I think, a more traditional use case. And the
Yeah.
use case traditionally has been siloed data,
Yeah.
right? So actually the use case or the proposition is around, look, there's real intelligence and value in each of those silos, but actually the proposition was around joining those together.
Hmm.
And what you're talking about actually accelerates that further. Not only are you joining them together, you're leveraging those data sets and the AI agents to maximize the benefit for the customers, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it's about
Goodness.
optimizing the route you take to solve the problem and
Wow.
to get a solution. Yeah.
I think life's gonna significantly change, isn't it?
I
The
think
work
so.
life. I
Yeah.
think so, yeah. So you talked about some background in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the questions I had was, I was curious, do you feel like you need a really strong mathematical background
Mm.
in order to be able to apply that to leveraging AI for benefit in whether it's societal or organizational or
Mm.
governmental, it doesn't really matter. But is that mathematics background vital or critical in terms of impact or your ability to impact?
Right. So, you know, now AI is really, really accessible to everyone, really, as
Yep.
as we've seen with like, well, Chat GPT, for example, is one thing, but it's not only that, and that is like a microscopic thing compared to the entire like ecosystem of AI tools that are out there. But we have lots of like no code solutions, low code solutions, so you can implement AI without really knowing how to code, right? Then you have also packages that allow you to implement AI also quite easily. So then you're required to know a little bit more about coding, but quite straightforward in that regard. And I'm not even talking about mathematics here. I'm just talking about the coding side of things. So what I would say is for implementing AI solutions, really no, like the technical side of things, unless you really want to know what's going on behind the scenes. So
Yep.
I wouldn't say is is a need, right? But is it really good to have if you want to understand, like as I said, what's going on in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
background. That being said, two things. One, if what you want to do is research and development in terms of like I want to develop AI algorithms, then yes, you do need maths because at the end of the day, the AI is mathematics. Um, and also, what I would say is that when I haven't done research and when I have done more like AI implementations or finding AI solutions for specific problems,
Hmm.
I have used what I've learned in maths, if
Hmm.
that makes
Yeah, it
sense,
does. Yep.
but not from a technical perspective, more from a skills perspective. Because I think learning mathematics, doing a degree in mathematics, master's, PhD, whatever, that teach you other things that are transferable skills
Yeah.
when it comes to implementing AI solutions.
Yep.
So, for example, like problem solving, creative thinking, for example, logical reasoning, all of that stuff,
And you can
right?
apply that in
Resilience,
any
even
scenario.
exactly.
Yep.
Then you can apply that into the problem of finding an AI solution and finding the best model or approach to actually solve that problem. Because with AI, it's not like I have this problem, then I need to do this. It's absolutely not like that. There's so many things that you need to take into account. So yeah, all these like more soft skills come in handy.
Well, it sounds like there's hope for the non-mathematicians then.
There is hope. There is hope. As I said before, positive mental attitude.
So question around kind of misconceptions that you hear or see in the market. I bet there are a ton.
So many.
But like what are the ones that stand out for you where people are just getting it wrong or not understanding it?
I think with generative AI being the hype at the moment, there is a misconception of that being the entirety of what AI is, right?
Yep.
Generative AI is just like a tiny bit of what AI is. AI is much more than just generative AI, right? We have, I don't know, the classic like machine learning models, right? Don't
Yep.
forget about your best friend XGBoost, right? So that is the main misconception, and really thinking that AI is just chatbots, right? It's not only that. It is part of it, but it's not only that. Also, thinking that AIs can actually have self-awareness and think from themselves the same way that humans do, and sentient like AI, right? That is not a thing at the moment. And I think people get a little bit confused with what they see in the movies, right? And they kind of think that is what AI is, and we're really far away from that.
Where do you think that information comes from? Is it literally everywhere? Probably more social media, I would imagine.
I was going to
say,
social media, and also people don't really have reliable resources or even like technical resources, or they don't really make the effort to actually learn about what's actually possible for AI. But I'm not saying this in a bad way. I think it's an accessibility thing more than anything, right? People are all the time on their phones. It's what they see on social media, on I don't know, on YouTube, the news, all that stuff.
Well, it's information overload, right? And you can't actually go deep into any of it because there's too much of it.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we start to think now about impact and potential benefits,
yes,
and you said it's really there's no sector that can't be or that can't achieve the benefits of AI.
Yeah.
Are there any particular standout use cases that you're seeing, or market sectors that you see as having big opportunities by adopting AI?
So, from my experience, like I don't know the exact stats, right? But from my experience, I would say sectors like healthcare, finance, retail, manufacturing, insurance, things like that. And I think the thing that all of these sectors have in common is they rely a lot on traditional processes, and they have a lot of repetitive process. So things that are done manual that could be automated.
Yep.
Right. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of potential, especially with the emerging techniques and tools that are happening at the moment.
But it really is everywhere, right?
It really is everywhere. To be honest, it really is everywhere.
And is that the gap? So one of the things I think about, and it'd be good for you to talk about any practical use cases that you've seen or that you've implemented, just to again help bring it to life for the audience. But one of the biggest areas of opportunity that I see is that organizations specifically don't actually understand how much data they have beneath them. You know, they've got this history of operating, often going back many, many decades, and that the data that's followed them on that journey comes in many forms, right? It'll come in paper form, it'll come in Excel form, it'll come in cloud form. It doesn't really matter, but
Yeah.
there's a journey to be had there. My point is huge amounts of data that they're sat on,
Yeah.
but isn't that the point? They're sat on it,
They don't
right?
do anything
And they
about
don't
it.
do anything about it. But I wonder, because if they knew, if they realized the power of patterns and prescriptive or predictive data analytics, I
Yeah.
don't think they'd be sat on the data
Yeah.
because it's such an enormous competitive advantage.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense to sit on the data, right?
Yep.
So it is part of the job bringing that to life for organizations and helping them understand.
Exactly. So I think there is a big problem with organizations that they just don't know. They just don't not aware of the potential and how much can be done with all the data that they have, right? I've sat with potential clients, right, to discuss what their problems were and what are the types of data that they were collecting, all of that stuff, and most of them, you need to kind of like push them to tell you what they have on their minds. And we've talked about this before, right? I think people, first, they might not understand the power, but second, they might think that that is too sci-fi. So they don't even,
As in they can't even get there if
exactly,
they wanted to.
like, well, it would be great if we could do this, but oh no, like I'm not even going to say it because that is too crazy.
Yeah.
No, but it can be done. And something that I often say is that, even if it's too crazy, just tell me what you want to do.
Amazing.
Because then we can discuss and we can see if that's feasible or no.
Yeah,
right?
and often people think of the goal as I often call it kind of a light switch moment. You either succeed or you don't, right? It's either on or off. But actually the reality of it is, even if they want to achieve this, fantastical objective that may not be possible, and we get them 60% of the way there, that's night and day based on where they were before we had the conversation, right?
And even having this conversation sparks to have other conversations that might get you to somewhere that you didn't know that you could get. And
Yep.
then when you talk about it, you say, actually, I want to go, in this direction.
Love it. So can we spend a second on disruption of markets, disruption of sectors,
Right.
and there is threat in there. Let's be clear, there's threat as much as there is opportunity.
Yep.
But I see a particular challenge in sectors such as, for example, the creative arts
Okay.
or law,
Right.
and it's really a unique challenge, this, right?
Yeah.
Because going back to your example on generative AI, who owns that? Right, and what does the law start to do about that? So I see a kind of a gap or a gulf emerging between guidance and law around things like IP and actually what's going on, and it's going to take some time to catch up. And my fear is, by the time they catch up, we'll be gone again, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what's your feelings on all that stuff? Is it?
So that's a really good point, right? And it's true, and I agree with you, right? The more, and I think we've touched on this before, right? The more AI evolves, the more threats there are, and the more opportunities there are to, like, I don't know, cyber attacks and security issues, privacy issues, all of that stuff. But this area also evolves at the same time in so many ways. One of them, and ironically enough, we are also using AI to put like security measures, right? There's
Yes.
there's all this research on like cybersecurity with AI, fraud detection with AI. So there are, measures put in place now in that regard, but not only that, like regulations, right? So this year, the European AI Act has been put in place, right? So those are regulations, and now organizations, people need to stick to when it comes to like deployment of AI solutions, right? But also, I think something that is important is for organizations themselves to put regulations and safeguarding measures in place to also make sure that they are, using AI responsibly, that they're having accountability, and that they're also transparent with what they're doing with AI and the data that they're using.
Well, and I see synergies between this journey we're on now with AI and actually the journey on data regulation with
Mm,
things like GDPR. I see similarities there.
of course.
Eventually, I think it will go down that route, right?
Yeah,
But your point is actually taking ownership of understanding where we are on the journey
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
putting measures into place that just ensure that you're acting as an organization in a
Exactly.
responsible way.
Yeah, of course.
Um, there's always fear with new technology, right? And
Yes.
one thing I hear time and time and time again is, "Oh, AI is going to take all the jobs, right? There'll be no one left to do any." So, what's give us a narrative on AI displacing a whole raft of industries and job roles?
I think it's some mind shift issue more than anything else. And let me explain that. I think we need to reskill and upskill, which means that, yes, with AI, we're going to be able to reduce the human work in certain areas. So, for example, think about the classical example of a customer service
Hmm.
chatbot,
Yeah,
right? So if you're implementing that, you might not need that many people working on that sector, but you need an AI engineer that implements that,
yeah,
right? Okay, so yes, we are reducing the amount of work that is needed in certain areas, but we need people also developing the solutions, monitoring the solutions, controlling, deploying, all of that stuff.
yeah,
So yeah, in some areas, yes, but in other areas, we're actually creating opportunities. We're actually creating jobs. And also is about teaching and educating people about these AI solutions, and then I think people, would have a better idea of what the solutions are actually capable of doing, and what no, right?
yeah,
Because it's not that they are replacing 100% people, right? They are more there to assist, right? Is
yeah,
a tool. I think we need to see AI as a tool
yeah.
more than anything else, because that is what it is at
Yeah,
the end
and
of the
and
day.
and again, it's not a journey that's new to us, right? When the
No.
Industrial Revolution happened, when the
Exactly.
automation in
Exactly.
industry happened, so it's a reskilling challenge that
Mm,
predominantly education in the workforce will have to manage, but it's not an eradication issue,
yeah,
right? That's how you
exactly.
see it. So you touched on security.
Yeah.
I so far we found kind of different types of business in different positions with AI.
Yeah.
Those kind of sitting on the sidelines going, interesting, but not going to do anything with it yet. Don't
Mm-mm.
understand it enough, don't
Yeah.
understand what the benefits are. But conversely, you see these more aspirational, ambitious organizations
Yeah.
rushing towards it. And there's dangers with both of those, right?
Yes.
So I have seen adoption of AI, and we ran a webinar recently, and touched on some of this stuff with large language models, right?
Oh, goodness.
But you rush into the AI space because of the obvious advantages if you understand them of competitive advantage, right?
Mm.
Um, but it's really dangerous to do that unless you put guardrails
Guardrails
in,
in
right?
place. Yeah.
But conversely, you're sat on the sidelines and you won't do anything, and your peers and your competition is moving into that space. This is such an acceleration curve that if you, my opinion only, right? But if you don't understand it, if you don't move into that space, the gap between you and your competitors will open up, I think, like we've never seen before,
Yeah.
right? So again, just a view on those that are rushing in but maybe not taking care and due attention
Yeah.
versus those kind of sat on the sidelines and maybe too apathetic to it.
I think there's a middle ground, right? Is like, if you want to implement AI solutions, then yes, like, take your time, don't rush into it, and put security and safety measures in place. And I think that is an inversion of like, investment is an investment of time, and probably money in the long
Of
run,
course, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay, so you're taking your time to actually doing things correctly,
yep,
right? So in the long term, you don't face problems as people are asking your chatbot to make bombs for you, and it's
exactly,
actually telling you that, right? Things
exactly,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
And those that are kind of sat there doing nothing, I mean, do you see an inevitable decline there or not necessarily?
I think that's so interesting because um, the fact that you can apply AI to every industry, so the fact there is potential, it doesn't mean that you have to,
Yeah.
right?
No,
And
exactly.
I
Yep.
think one of the issues nowadays, like people want to apply AI solutions no matter what, and they don't really investigate what are the options to solving their problems,
Yep.
right? They're not looking into it, and just because it's the trendy thing at the moment, they're just applying AI solutions for the sake of applying
Correct.
AI
Correct.
solutions.
Yeah.
So for the people that are a little bit more, that they don't know what to do, that they're a little bit more apprehensive, first of all is understand what that is, because sometimes people, I think, they have a little bit of fear maybe about implementing this, AI into their workflows, processes, business, whatever, because they don't really understand,
Right.
right? So it's about learning and educating themselves about what that is,
Yep.
and then make a decision, really.
And in terms of helping organizations or individuals with that realization, that's something we've done, you've done
Mm.
many times
Yeah.
before, right? But is it a difficult process, or actually is it when you get to sit down in front of someone, actually the light bulbs start to go on everywhere, right?
Mm.
What's your experience of that so far?
A little bit of everything, to
Okay.
be honest with you. So there's people that, they're really excited about, you know um improving
Hmm.
their day-to-day life in their workplace, right? But as you say, that may be a little bit apprehensive of implementing these AI solutions. But with you give them confidence that, you can actually implement those things, right? And that you can actually improve their
And
day-to-day
maybe step by step,
step
right?
by step. And you break it down, and
Yeah.
okay, this is first what you do, then this, and then we could do this, and then that, and see, I work with this other client, this other business, and these are the results, right? So give them a little bit of trust and
Love it.
evidence that
Love
that
it.
can be done, right? Um, and there's other people that, that really challenge, with things like the security and the privacy, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what about, the sensitive data, and what if this is leaked, and what happens if that, and all that, because, they really want to make sure. As I said, I think this is linked to what I was saying, is the fear of what if things go wrong?
Yeah.
Like, what if this happens? But it's about really explaining that these challenges can be either mitigated or eradicated,
Yeah.
right? How would you do it? And also given examples in where this has worked, right?
And we won't dwell on it, but an example of bringing some of that stuff to life is with the large language models,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And unless you put the guardrails on, i- the power of those models relies to an extent on the access to the information they have, and that could be multifaceted, right?
exactly.
But the more access you give them, ironically, the more risks exist, and therefore you have to
Yes,
mitigate those risks,
exactly.
right? So it's just really what it is education.
Yes, exactly. I always say knowledge is power. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
And you, even to this day, I think you continue to train and teach on
Yes,
AI and mathematical models and uh, the whole lot, right?
yes, I do. I do
You enjoy it?
a lot.
Good,
I
good.
love it. I love education, right? I think it's super rewarding, especially, because I've been there, right? I've been there, and I think all of us have been, right? Like in front of a very challenging thing that you want to understand, and feeling there's no way I'm going to be able to do this, right? And then, seeing yourself achieving and progressing and finally really understanding. And not only that, like seeing yourself applying that knowledge to lots of different things and achieving more than what you could even imagine, like, in the past, and seeing other people achieving that is super rewarding.
We we
And I
we
love that.
it's brilliant. And we talked and previously, I think, about the more you understand, the kind of broader your horizons are. So it actually
Mm,
enriches life, doesn't it?
of
You
course.
know,
Yeah.
um, from the ethical side,
Yes.
what do you see as the main dangers, or what do you see happening in the AI space around kind of ethics?
I think when we're dealing with lot of data, there's also more chances that we're dealing with bias data. And I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
we've seen this a lot in the news, lots of systems that have been developed that are biased and they have ended being, for example, racist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if all your data set is trained on white males, then if you want to predict something for someone of a different race, of a different gender, then you don't get really good accurate predictions because your data is biased, right? So that is one of the problems. I would say also dealing with sensitive data, right? Especially when we're talking about generative AI, we don't want or bots, for example. I put the example of bots because
Yeah.
I think people can relate to that,
Yes.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't want them to spit out like sensitive data.
Yeah.
So it's about how we responsibly handle this sensitive data and how we incorporate this into our AI solutions securely, right? Also, another point is over reliance
Yeah.
on on AI solutions, right? So yes, models give us predictions, or generative AI would spit out this text, but how do you know if that is actually the truth?
Yeah.
And also, eh, should you rely on it to make your decisions, right? I think we need to understand again, and I'm repeating myself, but this is just a tool, right?
Yeah.
So if you have, let's come back to the AI agents, right? If you have an AI agent that is telling you to do something based on some inputs that you have given them,
Yeah.
you should be able to not take this as like the ground truth, right? You need to have a little bit of um, skepticism, if that
Absolutely.
makes
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then, but also at the same time, there should be measure in place that allow you to, you know, make these decisions easier in the sense, and this is more for like a user experience point of view. If you want to proceed with the next step, maybe to have some sort of like confirmation, right? Okay, I'm reading this and I am responsible of accepting this as the real truth, right? And
Yeah.
then I'm accepting, and then we move to the next step, if that makes sense,
It
right?
does. And I wanted to come back to your commentary on bias,
Mm,
and that got me thinking about um, trust and data,
mm,
and actually human subjectivity,
mm,
right? Because we're all, I think, the biggest division of humanity is because we all think differently, and our views are opposing sometimes. So instead of just respecting that we're a culmination of our experiences
mm.
there and our knowledge, there's this opportunity for opposition, right? And friction. But the point I'm making around data is there is no utopian data set, right? And I think what you're saying is
Mm.
being aware of that, that there are always going to be inherent frailties in the data to some degree, whether it's huge or whether it's minor. When you extrapolate that out
Mm.
with, particularly when you talk about predictive, prescriptive,
Mm, mm.
you just need to be aware of that in the first place, right?
Of course, yeah. But there are ways to, yeah, I think, right. I think being aware is the first step,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that's where everything ends, right? Because you can do things about it, right? If you have a biased data set, well, there are ways to make it no bias,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So you add some samples that are meaningful for the data set to make it more balanced, for example.
Okay.
Things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, awareness is the first step always. But
There are
there are
strategies to, yeah,
strategies
yeah,
to
yeah.
put in place to actually solve these issues, right? Because you do want your data to be as, I don't think accurate is the word, but as meaningful and as clean
Yes.
as possible to fit
Yes.
into your algorithms. And look, people that do classic machine learning know that 80% of your work is cleaning the data, actually, right? So people think that when
You
you
said
do,
80%.
or even more,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Of course. Yeah.
And that's just getting it to a place where it's useful.
Yeah, exactly. Like cleaning and managing data is a massive part of machine learning, for example, right?
Because obviously output depends on input,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Um, bit of a segue. So trust
Yeah.
in what we see and what we consume.
Mm.
I think you can see the impact of what, for example, misinformation has done on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the amplification of opinions
Yeah.
that may not be backed up by science, right? I think Donald Trump phrases it right? So for
Yeah, I
fake
try not
news.
to listen to him as much as I can.
um, so the key question is, as we go down this journey and things like deep fakes are emerging,
Well, yeah.
what tools are going to be available to people to try and separate the misinformation in whatever form it
Fake
comes
news, yeah.
exactly to the stuff that potentially matters? Do you see that keeping up?
Yeah. And it's what we talked before, right? So first of all, there are, algorithms that have been developed that are able to identify if like deep fakes or if certain things are fake or not.
That's what you were
Or
talking
is
about
it,
before on security,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But even for example, I don't know if someone creates art with AI and it's saying that they have, for example, done it, right? Or for example, in an exam, if a student cheats
Yes.
and uses generative
Yes.
AI to create their, so there are tools that are actually able to identify if that has been made with AI or not, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the thing. And the other two is what we've mentioned before, right? So education, right? Being aware,
Yeah.
and then regulations put in place, right? So you put rules and laws in place that try to, control this type of actions, really.
One of the things that really fascinates me, actually, I always talk about kind of barriers to entry around technology.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen, and there is an element of this going on with AI, but really it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's minute, right? So normally a new technology comes along, the barriers to entry for society are really high. And that might be cost, it might be complexity, it might be availability, could be any number of things, but the barrier is often high. And as time goes on, that barrier slowly lowers and society can then access the technology. I've never seen a technology where the barrier is so low to begin with, so the rate of adoption and use is so high to begin with. Is that, do you think that's a good thing positively? I know you're a positive person, but do you think, or can we have too much too quickly?
No, I think it's great. I think it's amazing that the AI is so accessible for everyone. And I think, lots of people are benefited from it, right? Just, people are using, AI tools to simplify their lives, to save time, which means I get to spend more time with my children, right? Or I get more traveling time, or I get to, I don't know, like give a better, do a better job in my workplace, things like that.
That's the ideal scenario, isn't it?
Exactly.
And I think that there's a real opportunity, and we've had it before and ignored it, but I do think there's an opportunity to leverage tools to achieve more of a balance in our lives,
Of
and
course.
to probably reconnect with the things that really matter.
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything super exciting that you've seen on the horizon for society, for individuals, that might be a game changer for them, whether that's in gaming or whether it's social media, or is there anything coming down the pipe that you can say, oh, this might have a big change on the way we get on with our day-to-day lives?
Well, I would say I mentioned it before, but definitely I think AI agents is going to be the thing
Okay,
of
that's the big one. Yeah.
2025. But I think also quantum AI and multimodal AI. There's lots of work done with multimodal, but that has been developed a lot, which is basically inputting not only text but also images and videos. Into the
Quantum
and
anything
well, quantum
really
anything.
just scares me a little bit,
Yeah.
I've got to say. But I know we're from different sides of the fence on that.
Yeah.
But the leaps are just astonishing, right? And people, I think, refer to kind of super intelligence, right, at the point. So do you? I mean, is that a misconception that you talked about at the beginning? Do you laugh at that, or do you think it's based on some future event that people should be aware of again?
Okay, give me your definition of super intelligence.
Where I guess I think this is where the control is removed from, ultimately, I'm being very high level, but where the control is taken away from the human completely.
Right. So there's a term called artificial hyper-intelligence that refers to that. So artificial intelligence going beyond what we can comprehend and being completely uncontrollable, right?
And there are people who are honestly, like, they're sitting there today, whether it's true or false, but they're sitting there today, and we'll come on to it, anxiousness around that. There's genuine anxiousness.
There is.
Similar kind of levels to kind of climate, right?
Yeah.
So it exists, and I think some commentary on it's really good.
Yeah. It does. But look, my personal opinion, and is just an opinion, and it doesn't mean that I'm right, is that we are very far away from that. And not only that, I really think we'll never get into that. I have zero worries whatsoever.
Wow.
And I go to bed quite calm, to be honest, in regards to this.
I think you would do that anyway,
I
Anna,
think I
to
would
be
do
honest.
that anyway. But look, I understand the concerns, and I think it comes to really first educating yourself, right? As I said before, the more you know, the more you understand, the more you're able to make better decisions. And I think if you really understand what AI is capable of and its limitations, I think the worry levels
Dissipates.
will come down a little bit more, right? And also, I think it's a bit about trust, really. So trusting that, yes, AI is evolving, but it's not uncontrolled, right? There are regulations put in place. It's not really, like, for the most part, developed with evil in mind, right? Is with, like, making our lives easier in mind, and having a little bit of faith, really.
That's a big ask.
I know, but look, and I think you can apply this to every single thing in life. But if there's something that and we've talked about this, right? If there's something that you cannot control, what to worry about? Why worry about that, right? Like, if you can't control something, then it's gonna happen anyway. Focus on what you can control, and what you can control is learning about AI, understanding its limitations, and that's it, really, and using AI in a responsible way. So focus on that, and then whatever happens, what all the people decide to do, it happens. There's nothing that you can do about it.
Great.
Right?
So you've taken us to a realm of positivity.
Yes.
So to end the podcast, let's think about something like, we're recording this close to Christmas, right? Let's think about a nice gift for the audience, which is just a kind of a narrative on AI, suggestions. What's your high level summary of the journey for AI, how it can be used, what people should or shouldn't do about it?
I think it's what I said before, right? We've seen how much AI is impacting everyone's life in a positive way, like in lots of different aspects, right? In our daily lives, in our workplace, is helping organizations develop things that are really impactful. We are, being able to detect diseases quicker. We are able to, I don't know, make better decisions when it comes to, like, implementing laws, things like that. We are able to develop security with AI. So there are lots and lots and lots of positives, right? So let's focus on those, and let's keep faith that, the same way that AI is evolving, responsible ways to treat AI will evolve as well. And it's just about trusting that and just using it to, do positive things, really.
Love it. And if anyone wants to reach out, has any questions, they can do that, right?
Absolutely.
Good
More than
stuff.
happy to chat.
Anna, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really, really good information in there for the layman and some for the expert as well. So really appreciate it. Thanks for coming along.
It's all right. Thank you.
All right.